So you've come to the hard realization that you need to make some dramatic price increases. But how do you actually go about doing that? Do you do it to everyone at once? Just to some of them? How do you do it without ticking them all off? That's what we're getting into today. 15 tips for increasing prices in a way that won't burn down your firm. Up first, let's start with the new clients. Our mind goes to like the legacy clients who are paying us hardly anything, and that's a hard emotional decision. But then in the meantime, we're letting new clients in the door under like kind of an ambiguous pricing structure. So I'd say, don't let another client in the door at a price that you aren't ecstatic about. And where you set that price, I would argue actually shouldn't be your minimum. Let's aim for a price that you think you'll be happy with 2 or 3 years from now. If you bring in somebody today when you're aggressively increasing prices over the next few years, if they start at the minimum, they're still gonna be annoyed in a few years, right? Because you're still increasing prices. Now it makes sense that we're resistant to increasing prices on existing clients because it's hard to change those expectations. But new clients, they don't have those expectations. In fact, if you take one thing from this video, go set that bar higher for new clients. You have no duty to a prospect. You have a duty to your existing clients. There's a duty joke to be made here, and I'm gonna go right past it. Number 2, don't advertise your minimum. Get ready for a hot take here. Most people will put minimum pricing on their website, the goal being to reduce the number of tire kickers not willing to pay your fees. And while I do think you should have a price on your website for this reason, should it really be the minimum? I would argue putting the minimum on your website actually anchors people's expectations to the lowest amount you're willing to take to work with you. And over the period of a few years, you could see how this will actually have like a downward trending impact on your client base. You don't want an entire client base that is paying your minimum. So what do we do instead? How about we advertise like the median or a range for the type of engagement that you want to take on? Your minimum might be $600, but the type of client you actually want more of is something more. In fact, the only filter there probably shouldn't be price. Do you really want to work with anybody that has $600 to pay you? So let's start by defining the non-price attributes of a great fit client. These are the clients that feel the most painful pains you solve. If you don't know what those are yet, look at your current client list and think, why are the people up here paying me top dollar but with a big smile on their face? Why are they so happy about that? It's because they're feeling the pains you solve very acutely. The filtering we want to do on our site should speak to the non-price attributes that make those great fit clients. And then share what ranges those clients usually pay. Your minimum might be $600, but maybe those clients are paying like between $1,400 and $2,200. I don't know, pick a number. Could be annual, could be monthly. And if that's what I want to bring more of, that's what I'm going to put on blast on my website. Up next, switch to upfront pricing if you aren't there yet. The worst thing you can do when you're increasing prices is spring that surprise on them after the project is finished. At that point, if they don't like it, it's really hard to get paid for all the work that you just did. But I get the fears here. If you've never done upfront pricing before, this can be really hard to get your head around. How do I know how much I'm gonna charge for the work if I haven't done the work yet, right? In my firm, we took about 1,500 annual projects that were billed hourly after the fact, started giving all of those people a price upfront, just to ensure that before the work began, they were ready to pay those new prices. This level of transparency, it's also just the fair thing to do. But we don't do this yet because, well, I don't know the scope. I haven't seen the work yet. And your mind jumps to all the cases where scope changed wildly and you're like, well, it would never work in that situation. All we're doing by giving a price up front is saying if scope is largely the same as it was the year before, here's what your price is gonna be. Now, this proposed price ought to build in some kind of bump, right? That increase. You'd also build in any scope changes that you already know about, maybe something that came up in planning. You can also set that estimated price to be a range. And one thing I found that I wasn't quite ready for as we went through this change was the administrative benefits of this as well. The amount of like work that went into billing that we eliminated from our partners, our most time-constrained people. The fact that when you put a price in front of them up front, you can also get a payment method and eliminate your AR. What we did was we required a payment method, and then as soon as the project was done, as long as it came in within where we thought the scope of it would be, we would pull payment when the project was done, eliminating all the work of invoicing and chasing people for payment. Now if you wanted, you could charge the whole thing up front. You take a deposit, or you could do what we did and just pull it at the end. And in 90% of projects where they came in within the scope that you expected, you've eliminated all the work associated with billing. And the ones that come in outside, that's fine. You're just having another conversation with the client. Up next, consider your business like on the whole. When we're thinking about an uncomfortable change, our minds go straight to specific client situations and weird one-offs where this is gonna be complex, or where one person may end up paying a different amount than another person. It's helpful in these cases to zoom out and think of the business as a whole. Considering this change, what's revenue gonna look like? What's our cost structure gonna look like? Yes, this impacts specific people in different ways, and we want to be sure that, I don't know, nobody is hard done by that. Make sure it's fair. But we also don't want to go so far as to split hairs over the profitability of every single project. This can be a real trap that keeps you from making strategic decisions that benefits the business as a whole, which is ultimately what matters most, right? The profitability of specific projects, while it does matter, can't weigh too much into your business-wide decision making. Think of client groups as like portfolios. Are you going to make more money on them, less money on them as a group if we make this decision? If so, take care not to let those specific scenarios undermine what is a positive change for the business as a whole. Up next, let's avoid like generalized communications. Oftentimes when firms reach their breaking point, they're like, we actually need to increase our prices quite a bit across all of our clients. They'll put out a generic letter to all their clients saying things are changing. It's kind of vague and doesn't dig into specifically how it's changing for that client. And we do this because through our lens, it is a significant change across all of our clients. But your clients don't give a hoot about that.
I don't care that you broke your elbow.
Your client only cares about what's changing for them. So contextualize this with what the impact on their work is going to be. If you send out the big long letter with no specifics, it just scares people. It confuses them and actually creates more work for you to manage those communications with everyone, rather than starting with a contextual explanation and then offering the background. So say, here's how your engagements are changing, and here's the background if you're interested. But I would caution you to avoid the sob story. Help clients understand why it's a business imperative for you to do what you're doing. They don't need a sob story, get specific. When we did some significant price increases, it was due to the increasing amount of time it actually took to get tax work done. Going clear back to TICJA, we were doing more work than ever before for clients. We thought it was going to be temporary. It turned out it was not. We were getting more hands-on, doing more planning, but never increased prices because we thought it would go away. So our framing was over the past 5 years, we've been delivering a more premium service. And having seen the results of it, we're convicted that this is the right way to do things moving forward. We're identifying more opportunities where we can go deeper, and the additional fees we think you will pay us are much less than, for example, the tax savings we can recover spending that extra time. But in the last few years, we just haven't done a good job of increasing our rates to reflect that. That's a price increase your clients can actually get excited about, weirdly enough. Oh, so you're spending more time for me so I don't have to pay as much tax? Yes, I would happily pay you more than I would pay the tax man. Now, price increases won't always have that clear of a trade-off, but try to get specific as to the why. Don't forget, many of these people are fellow business owners. They've likely had to do the same themselves. Reasonable people will give you grace here. The folks that will just complain when price increases, no matter what, they're gonna be good clients to begin with. So don't worry about bending over backwards to keep that type of person happy. Now, when you're communicating this, focus on needs, not costs. Everybody's seen the version of this letter that's centered on increasing costs of staff and taxes and credit card processing fees, whatever. These costs are usually smaller incremental things. The bigger narrative is how in demand you are, and how in the course of trying to deliver a premium client service, it is just going to take more time, regardless of inflation or any of those other things. It's funny, a trend I've seen that I don't think we talk enough about is generally as a firm matures, they start doing more work for people. We think we'll actually do the opposite. We'll get more efficient over time, when what we actually find is as our expertise grows, it leads to more work. Great additional work for the client that was work we didn't even have on our radar in the past. Your bookkeeping firm is getting more opinionated on the tech stack and you're doing more advising. You're identifying more tax savings opportunities for your clients. This is an increased level of service around the needs you're identifying in your clients. Oftentimes, efficiency gains net out the fact that you are doing more work, and so you think you don't need to increase fees, but you do. And this is what we build the sob story around. Really, it shouldn't be a sob story at all. But the story is around the value and the extra work that you're doing. You're not a landscaping company. Don't focus on the cost of fuel. Focus on why you're actually doing more for your clients than ever before. And lean into the benefits of scarcity. Ferrari doesn't produce as many cars as people want to buy every year. They always run out. It's very common with luxury brands. But when accounting firms hit capacity, they're like apologetic. They take the blame for it, as if you not having unlimited capacity is your fault. What if we instead leaned into scarcity in the way that we communicate this to clients? Your services are in demand, and it is a privilege to be on your client list. Now, there are certainly ways you can communicate this that would land poorly, but done well, this looks like statements like, we're doubling down on doing exceptional work for a smaller number of clients. Your good clients, they're gonna wanna be on that list. To that end, ensure your clients, in the course of these communications, that they are still on the list. They made the cut, woohoo! When I bought my firm and we had to go through some aggressive price increases, we basically told everybody, we're gonna chop down the client list by about 1/3. But guess what? you're still on the list. And even though we were increasing prices dramatically on these people, the biggest reaction we got was actually, "Oh, we're so happy to still be on the list. Thank you so much." There was a level of gratitude when we simply communicated what was changing that ended up being the polar opposite of what we expected. Now, were there still people bent out of shape about increasing fees? Absolutely. But the biggest reaction we got was actually gratitude, believe it or not, and it's because we framed the scarcity. We talked about how more than ever before, getting the accounting and the tax done was really challenging. It was more work. We couldn't help as many people. And so we're getting more selective about who we worked with. And people were like, "Thanks, man. Just happy to be on the list." Now, in a perfect world, you would do these price increases small and incrementally over time. But if you know a big change is needed, don't be afraid to do what you gotta do on the first year. Most firms come around to dramatic change when the situation is dire, and this is usually tied to capacity. We can't help all the people we've promised to help, and unless you take dramatic action, you're on the risk of not solving the underlying problem. That you can't help as many people as you got on the list. And then you deliver poor client services for years, only to continue saying, "Yeah, sorry, we're gonna keep increasing prices even though we're delivering crap service." Don't be afraid to rip the Band-Aid off if you need to. Don't deliver crap service year over year because you don't have the guts to do what it takes to deliver a level of service you would actually be proud of. Speaking to myself here. Okay, one thing accountants universally do here is overestimate how many people will leave. Now, I'm sure there's one maniac out there who this doesn't apply to, but I have yet to talk to a single accountant who wasn't ultimately surprised by how few of their clients left. And we all come into this doing the same math. What if more clients leave and we actually go backwards on profit? It's actually a really helpful exercise to pencil this out. Remember, we're optimizing for profit, not for revenue. When you take into account your cost structure, increases to price go directly to the bottom line, meaning every client that sticks around at a higher price is making you way more money. The old adage of doubling your prices and going home at noon, it's actually completely wrong if you have any costs. When you double your prices, your profit is more than 2x, meaning you actually go home sometime between 10 and 11. All that is to say, if you, for example, double prices, more than half of your clients would have to leave for your profit to be the same profit. And that doesn't sound like too bad of a worst case scenario for me, but this never happens. In my experience, fewer clients leave than people expect, which is what makes this next point super important. Price increases are not a mechanism to reduce client headcount. If you're over capacity, this is a great opportunity to cut a bunch of people, clients for whom the problems you solve aren't painful. And those are probably a lot of the folks that would drop off if you increase prices anyway. But this is an opportunity to selectively weed out folks from the client list that you don't want to work with, who aren't a great fit for where you're headed. Now, still increase prices, but don't plan on price increases solving your capacity constraints. Because the worst thing you can do is increase a price on a client, the client opts in, and then you're like, crap, I didn't actually want that client. What, are you gonna fire them now after they opted in? Think of this as an opportunity. You will be amazed at how much your quality of life can be improved just by removing a few of those stinkers, the irritating clients. But the reason we don't do this is you're still afraid of the previous point, too many people leave. So run that math again to get confident that too many people won't leave, so that the ultimate result is the people who leave are a combination of the clients you want to intentionally fire and a small number of the remaining folks making the decision to leave on their own. Up next, don't be afraid to highlight the changing needs of a client. Tell me if this story rings true. You start work with a newish business, you increase prices on them, say 30% year over year because they're growing quickly. And then you look back after a few years and realize the company's like 5x the size it was before when you first set a price. And I'm only charging maybe 1.5x where we started. Now, should my fees have also 5x'd in that situation? Maybe not, but in general, they don't trend upwards enough when the client grows. So as you're communicating price changes, be sure to delineate the change that is due to the client's growth and the change that is due to how we are repricing engagements. In the annual renewals we did for our monthly accounting clients, we would outline changes in revenue and headcount, bill processing volume, stuff like that, not to drive a specific calculation off of those figures, but to remind the clients that their needs are changing, because you genuinely do forget. Now, the most common trap I see in all of this, and it is easier said than done to navigate, is what clients you let get in your head. Oftentimes the loudest clients, the most emotionally taxing clients, are the people at the bottom of your client list that already complain about what they pay. But let's not forget that at the other end of the spectrum on that client list is a group of clients that would happily pay even more than what they've been paying because you're solving such painful problems for them. But because we don't hear this group, like we do the people that complain, the cheapskates take up too much headspace. Rather than focusing on the people that actually love you, that you actually want to build your firm around. You ever heard this expression? A mother is only as happy as her saddest child. That's what it feels like to manage a client list. The trap then becomes building around your stinker clients, when the lens we need to see change through is actually, how does this impact my best clients? And the next even better client that I want to attract. If our gut reaction to proposed changes is driven by the stinkers, you're gonna create a great firm for stinkers, aren't you? Now, last mental block here. Oftentimes we get sticker shock ourselves at what we're thinking about charging people. And it is worth stopping to consider. Are you actually worth this? Or more specifically, who are you worth this for? The stinkers we were just talking about. Are you worth it for them? Almost certainly not, because you're not solving painful problems for them. The other folks we talked about who will happily pay you more, the people for whom you're a great fit, you're probably worth it because you're solving very painful problems for them. That's half of the equation. But the other part of the equation of what people are willing to pay is how rare are the problems you're solving for? And this is a question of substitutes. If the guy across the street is charging less than you are, and I'm doing all the same stuff he is, why would you be worth it? If both firms solve accounting or tax problems, what's the difference? We could say we're better, but from the outside, the client has no idea. But if I solve a rare pain of the client that other firms don't solve, then I can basically command whatever fee I want, as long as the client actually is willing to pay for me to solve that solution, right? And this is where people talk about niching down, specificity, because when you're solving rare problems, you can command higher fees. And where most people start with niching down is actually in this price increase exercise. It puts the spotlight on who you're great for, and that is a great group to start doubling down on, to start moving down that spectrum of specialization. Now, almost all of us these days, we are staff constrained. And what I turned to running my firm genuinely was offshore hiring. 4 of my last 5 hires were offshore. And here's an easy way to get started. The music, please. This video's sponsor is Cloud Accountant Staffing. It helps you find talented accountants in the Philippines to join your firm. It was actually launched by a firm owner who started doing this himself, ended up hiring some recruiters locally in the Philippines, and now does it for other firms. In fact, I think we got a resume. Yeah, come on out.
Hi.
Hi, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a resume from Cloud Accountant Staffing. As you can see, I have valuable experience.
You sure do. The last 6 years doing tax? Most recently with a top 100 firm. I don't see any 1040 experience on there though.
I kind of outgrew that. I'm a tax senior. I just do the business stuff now.
You go, girl. Thanks for stopping by. That is a real resume from Cloud Accountant Staffing. The way their process works, you hop on a call with them to discuss your needs. Their recruiters find some folks who could be a great fit for you. You get a resume, you get an intro video for each applicant, decide if you want to interview them, and you only end up paying Cloud Accountant Staffing if you make a hire. So you've genuinely got nothing to lose. I'll put a link in the video description to learn more. So go out there and do what you gotta do, man. Stop apologizing for increasing prices. Frame it as delivering more value to your clients and getting more selective in the people that you serve. And I promise you, you're still gonna have a whole lot of people that are very happy to be on that client list.